and public. Notices were duly posted, and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman. Mrs. Fiore.
Yes, here.
Mr. Beach.
Here.
Mrs. Podgorski. Mr. Wallace. Mrs. Wolf.
Here.
Mr. Swirling.
Here.
Dr. Cerciello.
Here.
Mrs. Sample.
Here. Will you please rise for the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have a superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sample. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Tonight is our second of 2 evenings where we provide budget presentations from certain departments, from all of our departments with the exception of the building principals, but we will review them in more detail. Last time we talked about people services, curriculum, professional development, and technology. Tonight, our presentations are transportation, facilities, administration, and personnel and benefits. So the same format as last time for all of the board members. If you go into you have to log into the BOE portal side of the website. You'll see, under superintendent's report, you'll see 4 different documents. Those documents correspond with each one of the budget departments that we'll talk about tonight. Within the document, each one of the administrators will give you an overview, which is that first cover sheet that you have in your packet. And then the more detailed budget is following right behind it. So if you have questions about the highlights or the overview, certainly ask. But then if you have a question about a certain specific line item on the budget as well, that's there for you. The only other thing I'll mention is under transportation. I'll introduce Marcy Cole in 1 second. Right directly behind her budget memo is a list of vehicles, their VIN numbers, their retirement dates, and things like that. That's just our fleet list. So we like to provide the board periodically, the finance committee as well as here at the board meeting, the fleet list, so you can see how many buses we have retiring and what years, so you know how many buses we have to purchase in order to keep up with the amount of buses that are retired. So with that, I'll introduce Marcy to begin the budget presentation on transportation. Good evening, Marcy.
Good evening, Mr. Clark. How are you?
Doing
New
wonderful.
board members, welcome. My name is Marcy Cole. I am the transportation dispatcher for Reddington Township. I supervise 16 bus drivers and a mechanic. We have a fleet of 30 vehicles, 21 54-passenger school buses, and 9 24-passenger vans. We are shared services with Branchburg Township, meaning we help each other out when we can. We have 2 buses now that from Branchburg that help us out with our Reddington and Hollenbrook runs, morning and afternoon. We started a successful training program for new bus drivers to train them after they get their permit to get their CDL license to drive. We are starting to create relationships with Hunterdon Central Regional High School and Tewksbury to help each other out when necessary, if we can. So if you'd like to go to the overall synopsis page, I'll just highlight a few things for you. This year we have something new. We have any drivers that we hire, we have a sign-on bonus. We have, if they already come with their CDL, there's another bonus for that. We've hired 2 drivers so far since January, and they have received the bonuses. Our mechanic has gotten his CDL. He drives right along with us now. In hiring these 2 new bus drivers, we were able to take back one of our routes that Branchburg was doing. So now we only have 2 instead of 3. I'll just highlight some of the bigger line items in the budget. The fuel, the gas and the diesel, because of the increase in fuel and diesel in the outside world, ours has gone up significantly. Our new bus purchase for next year, that is in there. Let's see. Our shared services with Branchburg, since we share the supervisor and they share me and the mechanics occasionally. My office is there, and I have one here that I'm at occasionally. Let's see. The general liability insurance for the buses and the vans, that's a significant increase for next year. Let's see. Our contract with Hunterdon ESC, they do all of our out-of-district routes. We have five students that go out of district, and they do all our transportation for us for them. Our aid in lieu for our non-public students in the township. Hunterdon Central handles most of that. We reimburse them. Let's see here. Every chance we get, we are applying through grants for electric school buses. To date, we have not been successful, but we keep our fingers crossed. This year we have started an intervention program at the schools, and we have bus service for those students. We started that this year. That's been very successful. I drive it the most, but that's okay. Let's see. For next year's purchases, we're hoping to get a bus or 2. And then purchase this year, through this year's funds, it's a snow cleaning machine, and we just drive the bus right under it and it clears the bus off. It's wonderful instead of being out there yourself and doing it. And then the wonderful LED parking lot lights, which will be wonderful when they're, Jason, you said the end of the school year they should be in? Yeah. So does anybody have any questions so far?
Just a quick question regarding the fuel.
Sure.
So it looks like it's about a 7% increase?
Yes.
That's, okay. So is that gonna be enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because we're still 2-tiered. We're not, the 3-tier I would have been a little hesitant, but since we're still 2-tier, we'll be okay.
What do you mean by 2-tier?
What we're doing now with the Reddington, Hollenbrook, and then going either to White House or Three Bridges.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if you'd like to go to the fleet list. So you can see the top 3 vehicles, the R12, R14, and RV35, they all retire this year. We did, with this year's fund, we were able to buy 2 new buses, which we should be getting in a couple weeks, hopefully. So those 3 are retiring the end of this school year in June. And then next year we have 3 more retiring in June. So we're trying to keep up with the retiring buses by, hopefully purchasing more. And now, we're hiring drivers, and which has been very successful. Like I said, 2 since January. And I have three working on their permits right now to get their license, so we can start training them soon. So we've been rather lucky in hiring people. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to highlight or say, I love that there's an electric bus on here and that it's being funded through a grant. That's fantastic news.
Yeah, we've been trying, 2 years now. We've been filling out every grant possible that we could find, and we just haven't had any luck. So, but we keep on filling them out.
That's great. Thank you.
Hopefully one day we'll be awarded something. Questions?
Thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. If the board would go down to the next presentation, this is the facilities budget presentation. And I'll introduce Mr. Don Race, our facilities manager. He will walk you through the facilities department budget and all that's included there, and give you an overview of his department and some of the projects that we have planned as well. So Don, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our new board members. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Don Race. I'm the facilities manager. I've been in the district for 15 years. Facilities manager since 2014. I directly supervise and manage the department, along with the maintenance foreman, 3 maintenance guys, daytime staff, custodial staff of 6, nighttime evening custodial staff of 12, with the own, with a supervisor at home as well. So we'll just go right in. So I just want to highlight a couple things on our budget this year. These are some of the larger recurring items that we've seen. Our custodial cleaning services contract for this up for the next school year. You see there is an increase there as well. Although there is an increase, we're very happy with the custodial services we have. Well, we've had a couple different management companies. We're very happy with the staff we have. A lot of the staff that we have at the nighttime have been here since 2012 when we first started, including our nighttime supervisor. We're in this in the next school year will be a final year of our contract. We will no longer be able to renew this coming year. We're going to renew the contract for 1 more year. We'll exhaust all of the renewals. We will need to go back out to budget for the 23-24 school. Trash and recycling services. There's a little bit of an increase there for the next school year. Our general liability insurance, our share of that, there's an increase there as well. Security services, which is our SROs, our wonderful SROs. Ryan Gilberry, Officer Harris. There's a little bit of salary increase there as well for the next coming year. Some of the other items are well water management, our appliance consultants we use to make sure our wells are in very good shape. We're doing anything we need to do compliance-wise, along with water testing services and make sure the water is safe to drink. You know, some of the other little bigger ticket items are custodial supplies, paper and cleaning supplies we use for that. And of course, a couple of our other bigger line items is natural gas that we use, electric and solar that we use as well. So a couple projects that we have coming up that we're replacing all the cafeteria lighting upgrades at White House and Three Bridges. That is being funded through our cafeterias. We're doing some HVAC controlled upgrade. That is a big software upgrade for the Three Bridges, White House, and RMS. That's being funded through a grant. And then Marcy mentioned it before, but we're replacing bus parking lots with LED lighting. And we were able to purchase these this year. Some of the bigger capital maintenance projects, the Hollenbrook roof here. We will be finishing the Hollenbrook roof project here. That's been 3 years. Working on this for 3 years, which will replace the roof on this building. We're doing some across the hall, we're doing some renovations to the curriculum office across the hallway to create 3 offices in that area. We're over at Three Bridges, we're doing some restoration to the outside of the big cupola on top of Three Bridges. The restoration on the outside of it. So we're gonna get that spruced up and make it look. White House in Hollenberg, we're doing a couple HVAC rooftop unit replacements, and those are just being retired because of age. And RMS, we're looking at doing something with the hallways over there, doing something with some tiling in that area, see if we can refresh that a little bit. One of the bigger things that we're doing outside for our students is district where we're doing outdoor classroom improvements. We're improving everybody's outdoor classroom space. Right, and then we always do sidewalk repairs. Questions?
A couple questions. The custodial cleaning, how much of an increase?
The increase that I put in there was based on 5.5%, which is correct.
Did they give a reason for the increase?
We can renew their contract based on that index rate. We're required to, we're going to renew them and they agree to this is that index rate.
Wait, this is like a 1 year?
This is a 1 year, right, exactly, this is 1 year. We are in the second year of a 2-year renewal. We went through the first 2 years of their contract. We have the opportunity to renew them for 2 1-year contracts. After that, then we will have to go back out to bid.
You don't have to go with them this year.
We don't, I mean, they could very possibly come back to us and say, hey, you know what, we decided, not to renew this, we want to go back. There's also that option.
But the 5.5%, that's every year, as part of the.
It really depends on what the index rate is at the time. If that index rate does go up or if it go down, it depends on what's kind of out of our control.
And the general liability insurance, what was the increase?
That was about 5.5% too. All the increases I have in my budget were based on 5.5%.
Don, can you clarify for us, are these actual increases of 5.5% or are these projected?
These are projected, actually, these are projected increases. Right, I mean, like I said, the index rate may come out again this 3rd or 4th quarter
Right.
and go down, which means these numbers will actually go down as well. These are just projected increases.
The general liability that falls and that type of thing, or what is that?
Yeah, it's Jason could probably elaborate a little more. It's basically the district's insurance.
Yes, just to clarify for Don, it's, so Marcy's area, it's automobile, but for Don, it can be workers' comp related. It could be facilities related, it could be pollution related, asbestos related. There's a lot of different liability that goes into there. Basically, anything relating to the property that's not health insurance or dental. So if you think about, the coverage you have for your house, you have similar for the school, plus beyond that pollution, asbestos, automobile, workers' comp. Workers' comp is the biggest component, biggest cost factor of that.
But why does it go up 5.5%? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, it's projected increase, so it can go up more. So I'll give you an example. Last year, we had an increase of over 9%, which we were able to negotiate down to 7.5%. And that increase, although we have a very good historical rate, we don't have a strong use of our workers' comp program. So we have we pay, but we're not using. And for general liability, we're also not submitting a lot of claims. So we were surprised to get that increase. What we were told that increase was relating to wildfires in California, the crime and other things that are happening beyond our control, and that the insurance carriers are assessing throughout all insurance everywhere. You also see that in coverages that are being dropped. So like, for example, cyber liability has been dropped from a lot of coverage. We still have it. But there's factors that are beyond our control. But we can also look at joining other groups. But I've looked at the other groups and they're between 6 and 10% last year. I'm anticipating this year that the renewal could be very similar because of the ongoing issues that we're seeing across the country.
When's the renewal?
We should see it in about April. And the finance committee will get it directly from the broker.
You just estimating.
Any other questions?
Yes, I just have a quick question. This is Eric. It was mentioned that the lighting upgrades in the cafeterias were being funded through the cafeterias. I was just wondering if you could please explain that funding mechanism.
Yes, that's being funded through cafeteria revenue.
Oh, just straight from the revenue of the, okay, thank you.
Yes.
One last question. I thought I saw, and I can't find what page, the updates for the Board of Ed meetings. I thought there was reference to the Holmesville School, gymnasium, I don't know what we call it, what do we call that?
The curriculum.
Yeah, so is that the plan eventually to move meetings or for upgrading sound and all that for that or no?
That's for the administrative staff.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I think you're talking about two different things. So curriculum office updates is across the hall.
right.
Jim's presentation last week, he had mentioned sound system upgrades for the board office conference room as well as for the Hollywood cafeteria. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
If in the, for student use, but also if in the event we had to move board meetings to a different venue, and we wanted to use that venue, we have the sound system there too.
okay.
Yeah, but that was last week, I think we talked about. I don't know if they're in
I
your
thought
budget.
that was in the budget. I thought I saw it as both.
Oh, you know
So
what?
it was
There's
like
probably-
upgrades for
It might
this
be,
room, and then-
probably, a lot of that shows up on my budget,
Okay,
although it is Jim is managing that.
thank you.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes. But you have it right there.
Okay.
You got it. It just shows up here because it's a capital maintenance project.
Yeah, Jim shows some of his IT server
Yeah.
upgrades, additional card swipe scanners for security and those things. Those are all, even though they're in come out of my budget here, they are managed by IT.
And they come out of the portion of the budget that's capital or maintenance projects that's not dependent on the tax levy.
Any other
Great.
questions?
Anything else? Other questions?
Great, thank you.
Right, Tom?
Thank you.
Don.
So there are two more presentations that we'll run through. The next one is Jason will go to administration. Jason is going to give you the overview of the next two, and these are administration along with personnel and benefits. Jason will give you a high-level overview of some of the information that he's provided in advance, or not, or he'll just leave. There he is. And I'll just remind the board, we'll go through administration first. When we get to personnel, we have an executive session related to personnel as well. So if there are more detailed questions about personnel or impacts for next year, we can talk in more detail during the executive session. So turn it over to Jason.
So good evening. First section, I'm going to go over the central admin department budget. That basically is Dr. Hart and my offices combined into one department. So some new initiatives, new to the budget that you'll see in there. We are rolling out a pilot program for paperless extra pay software. So we're going to do that this school year, but the cost you see there is the recurring software cost. We have a transition in our payroll department. This and my assistant VA staff, so it's a little bit challenging the next couple of months, but we're hoping to proceed with that to move to a paperless system. currently in the newspaper. We also have RTEA negotiations next year. So next year is our last year of our agreement, our 3-year agreement. So we will be going into negotiations in November, December. So there will be an increase in legal fees associated with that, but that's built into the recurring items that you see below. Going into the department budget, you can see I've ordered it from largest to smallest. First is legal fees. So we have Bogarty and Hara is our attorney. He's been our attorney for 25 plus years. Those are an estimate of the maximum legal fees that we could incur. Inside those legal fees is also our bond insurance legal fees. So if we have a case that goes into due process relating to special education at district placement, our placements, our attorney, Bogarty and Hara, does not take care of that. Our insurance mandates that they take over that from a legal aspect. So we have a deductible for that, and our deductible is $10,000. So incorporated into legal fees is the deductible in case we need that. We typically need that about once per year. So you'll see anytime there's litigation, that is where we get it from. Then we already talked this evening about general liability insurance. You can see that's pervasive in a lot of our budgets because we spread it out for accounting regulations where it needs to be. So transportation has their portion. Workers' comp goes into a specific section. Don Race, the facilities manager, had the property area of it. And you can see the dollar amount for that. That has been going up significantly. I just got an update on that it is likely going to be pretty high again this year because of what is occurring nationwide and due to inflation. However, I can tell you that our use of insurance is very low. We have an extremely good ratio for workers' compensation. And I think that's on the onus of how administration works with staff to minimize that. So we use Safe Schools as a program to train staff on how the best in safety practices. And I think you so we have a lot of insurance training. So we have a training on asbestos. Don Race actually does that himself in-house. We have other training that minimize our risk exposure. And when we have a case where someone may get slipped, trip and fall, or injured, we have a safety committee in-house. So we review every single safety matter that occurs, whether it's a student or staff member, and we look to see what caused it. Can we fix something? Can we do something differently? And we have a whole committee of administrators and staff that are on that deck reviewing each and every single safety incident. That includes district nurses, principals, things like that. We meet every quarter, which helps us with our workers' comp rate. Unfortunately, that has not changed directly to our savings from an insurance standpoint, mainly because of how the insurance industry is managed. Audit fees is another large component of this. We have an audit that happens twice per year, one time in April, one time in August. Our auditors gave an update this past January to the Finance Committee. We have anticipated no recommendations for the upcoming past school year. But we also get audits from the state, for federal grants that we have, from nutrition. So we get audits year round. So that's why you may see on occasion a resolution for a corrective action plan that's related to various audits from different state departments. Computer software, this is really for substitutes, absences, payroll, energy management. So we actually have a software program that monitors energy, but this is the recurring cost to maintain those in-house software. Then you have professional development, travel, dues, and fees. This is everyone put together, so this is actually your fees for going to school boards in October. If Dr. Hart or I go to a convention, our fees are in there. Dues for our organizations, memberships are in there as well. Then we have school boards and Garden State Coalition schools. So school boards, interesting, is in law that we have to fund them. So even if you didn't like school boards, you have to fund them. It's by law. So that is a significant amount of that $18,000 that you see there. We also optionally joined the Garden State Coalition of Schools. There was discussion a few years back of potentially not joining that, but due to their ability to impact potential laws passed and their dynamic with the state, we decided to keep that as an option, which is why the dues are still in the budget. Then you have basic mail, supplies, other services, FedEx, the mail post that you see. You have advertising, so we do legal advertising to attract teachers, other staff. Then you have general supplies, pens, paper, toner. Believe it or not, toner is actually one of the biggest supplies that you see in budgets. Very expensive. Copiers, we lease our copiers. So copiers are actually in every single department's budget. If you look into the details of it, we go through state contract. Then we have archiving, shredding services. That is, so we can get rid of paper boxes. And E-rate services. E-rate services are a federal program for supporting internet and communication systems. So this is a federal program that we participated in for 20 years that basically allows us to fund getting internet for the district subsidized. So the government is giving us money when we buy our internet. They also provide a significant amount of money every 5 years to do back-end equipment. So we actually have several $100,000 that we can access of E-rate funding to do back-end equipment. So in Jim's budgets, probably next year or the year after, you'll probably see some switches and other back-end IT equipment that will be funded through federal money instead of local taxpayer money. That's the general budget of Dr. Hart and my areas. Some other things that we do that are not in the budget, but just to highlight to your attention. Low-income assistance. So my office is the overseer of assistance to families that are in need. We work with a lot of different agencies locally to help families. So we work with Christine Day as a township, social services. We work with the Starfish program, Flemington Food Pantry. The HSA is a great partner because they give money for students to use at the holiday shop and other events throughout the year. So we also work with them on getting access to free meals. And they have access to a lot of programs in our district that do have a cost associated with them, but they can get them at no cost if they ask. So an example of that is field trips. You can get other aspects, sports, things like that that are may have fees associated with it. We also waive Chromebook fees for free use. So, another thing that we do is grant writing. So Marcy talked about that with electric buses. Marcy likes to talk.
I hope there's no more questions.
I'll remember that for her review.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of grant writing in my office. So we help with Sustainable Jersey grants. We actually helped write a grant for a Three Bridges project, detention basin that's ongoing, $5,000 from Investors Bank. We previously got that grant for White House School for a sensory garden. So we do grant writing whenever a teacher or staff member has something that they may want to go for. But
obviously has challenges in writing grants, we help out in that office. We also do retirement and financial planning. We meet one-on-one with people that have needs that they want to discuss, and we kind of help navigate them through their options and things that might be available to them. We can't give direct financial advice, but we can give them an overview of the options available to them so they can make a better decision on their own, or guide them to reach out to a financial planner. Cafeteria services, Mr. Race talked about. We have our cafeteria services are self-funded, which means that the money we charge and the money we get from the federal government is sitting in a fund. It's not tax levy dependent, so the taxpayers don't pay for our cafeteria at all. We get a significant amount of money from the federal government because we are in the National Food Program. As part of that program, it comes with some caveats that we have to provide low-fat or no-fat milk. So if you were a proponent of fat milk for, say, brain development or something like that, we are not allowed to do that. There's other criteria about sodium level, sugar content that they have to manage. So we actually outsource that to Nashios. But we do have a good amount of income in that because the federal government gives us money for every single child that's free and reduced, as well as provides free commodities. And commodities are basically, we get free product. So we can get chicken for free. We can get meat for free. And that helps maintain our revenues in our cafeteria program, which allows us to do things such as have cafeteria monitors. So you'll see some districts have trouble and maybe have to do a half-day program because they don't have enough staff to watch students. We do not have that issue here because we use our cafeteria money to hire aides to oversee the children. We also can get creative with that money to better the food product for children. So we have food advisory programs, and we have a list of contacts if you ever wanted to give feedback on the cafeteria service. Each principal has direct input on the menu. So, if you like something or don't like something, you can reach out to the cafeteria manager or principal, and they can adapt the program long term. And each school does a little bit different with their menu. So one school may say, I don't want to see this ever again. The other school may love it. It really depends on what the kids like, what the parents want. So the menus across the district are dynamic and different. The last thing I'll talk about is summer enrichment. That is also a separately funded program outside of the tax levy. That is not ESY, which Mrs. Beagle talked about. ESY is a required program if you have an IEP that says that you need summer work. This is summer enrichment, so this is kind of like an after-school program, but during the summer. So Colleen Ogden is our summer enrichment coordinator. She designs a program for the summer, and then students and families can pay for it and have some great things. I know that she got involved last year. The program did excellent last year, and she has some cooking classes and other classes that she's just rolled out. That website is active if you're interested in the summer program. Reach out to her or look on our website. And I talked a lot, but entertain any questions that you may have on Dr. Park or my areas.
I have a bunch of questions. And the legal fees, so that the 87,000, that's an estimate based on what? Based on what they've done in prior years? Or?
It's probably on the high end. They probably charge on average around 60,000. If you ever look at our bills list, Fogarty and Harris listed on there. If you take a given month and multiply it by 12, that will get you an actual. But it varies month to month and depending on the matter that's happens to be that month. So our bills range from $1,500 a month. They can go up to $6,000, depending on the needs at that given month. But around 60 And then we usually have around $10,000 for insurance, so that's 70,000. And then we have some other monies in there for a cushion in case we have high legal fees or, in this case, negotiations. So in negotiations, our attorney is more heavily involved.
This is not only, but this is only that firm, for legal fees, not the insurance, but for the.
So the legal fees are two-part. 95% of that 87,000 is the one firm, Fogarty and Hara. The other 5% is insurance lawyers, who the insurance company actually decides what pool of lawyers we can.
That's, you said that was, for litigation or due process.
Yep.
So Fogarty, I'm sorry, what's her name, Fogarty?
Fogarty and Hara, Jen does Fogarty and Hara.
Fogarty and Harris, so they do counseling.
Yep.
Do they ever come under a budget?
Frequently. I don't think we've ever spent $87,000.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But they know what the budget is, obviously. It's public.
Yep.
Okay, and then on the audit fees, what, give an example like nutrition. What's another example? Well, this is not like accounting.
It's an accounting audit. So we have,
Oh,
we
they
have
are accounting.
all accounting audits, but there are various different entities that we get audited. So food service is one. We get audited for SEMI, which is Medicare. We get audited for just our monthly reports that we have. So all of our federal money. So we have, in a given year, probably 7 to 10 audits from various different areas.
And the amount budgeted, that's for the response of who, an accountant or staff?
Accounting firm to actually
This is
do.
going to it, this is basically CPAs.
Yep.
Okay. So just going back to Fogarty and Hara, is that a contract that is, comes up for bid, or how does that work?
So with any, there's 2 ways you can bid. In this case, we don't bid. You have a professional service, and the professional service is a lawyer, doctor, accounting firm, OT, TT, nurses. There's a different regulation that allows 2 options. Option 1 is to do a request for proposal, which is like a rating system. So you can solicit packets from firms or anyone. And then we have a committee that actually reviews it and scores it, and the highest score wins it. That's option 1. The other option is to review and simply appoint. So we do appointments usually in May or June every year for all of our appointments. They're all in one board meeting. But on occasion, we do go out. So for example, we just did an RFP for architects.
And I just had a question about the NJSBA. And that's the State Bar Association,
School board decision.
School Board, yeah, School Board Association. So you said we have to fund them. How much of this is mandatory?
16.
We have to pay them 16,000?
I looked, it's in the backup documents there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, page 4 of 6. 16,000.
And that's the only organization that can be paid, right? That's the only.
Correct. It's the only one that I'm aware of that has to be paid.
But they take actual positions on issues.
They do.
You know what I mean? And the same thing with Garden State Coalition? Well, actually, let me ask you this, how much is going to Garden State? About the 16,000?
So 2,700.
Okay. And what is that for, Garden State?
So that's more of for a board member or for a superintendent to attend meetings that they have, and they review different policies and statutes that may be under consideration by legislators. They also have access to legislators and administration at the state level to enact changes, or to influence legislation to be dropped.
How would you describe their view? Do they have like a particular advocacy stance?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
I would say educational advocacy. Like, the president is led by a superintendent of schools and the executive director. Don't know what their background is, but they focus on educational issues.
Randy, I'll just say, I'm the delegate for the Garden State Culture School. I've only been to one meeting, but they do have a meeting once a month. And it's tomorrow. Dr. Hurt went, last time I went, I felt like it was very informative. And tomorrow we're having Senator Gopal, who's the new head of the state's education committee, come to the meeting. It's really a cross-section of the entire state of superintendents, and board members. There's like some administrative office people that last time it was largely HR based. We were talking about Central Jersey Pride. They gave us a presentation which is about attracting diverse educators. You know, my opinion is, from my perspective, being very new and not having that background, I thought it was very informative and useful, and the resources that they sort of put out in their meeting, I thought were of a lot of use to us. But again, I've been to one.
But they take actual positions on issues.
It seemed to me, yes, that they did. They were talking about various, but it strictly seemed to me to be, and Dr. Hart, you know better than me, from an educational perspective.
Thank you, Joyce.
Any other questions?
So the second part of my presentation is going to be more high level. It's personnel and benefits. We actually have an executive session to go over the specifics of this. A lot of this in the memo that you have open, your second memo is confidential. So we don't want to be disclosing if there's, say, a position being eliminated, or if there's a position being created, or if there's staff being moved to different positions. We typically do that at our March 15th meeting. So Dr. Hart will provide a presentation on the 2022-23 budget, and he'll go through the very specifics of that in public. So right now, a lot of this information that you see in here on that one first page of 46 pages is confidential in nature. So I'm not going to go through the new additions or reductions or changes of staff specifically in the first section. But that, if you have questions on that, you would go in executive session and talk about that. What I will talk about is some recurring items in the budget publicly, just so the public can also hear it. We have a contract with the RTEA, which is the major union in the district. That contract goes until next school year. As our negotiations committee, which is made up of 3 board members, negotiated several years ago, that is a 3% increase. So you can see that's made up of around 267 employees, and their salary guides that are negotiated as part of that. Then we also have non-aligned staff. Those are staff that are not in any bargaining union. We have 45 employees in that. That includes myself. Salaries are to be determined because the personnel committee actually decides on salary increases sometime in March or April before we move this historically. And then the last group we have is the RTAA. That's the administrators. So that's made up of principals and supervisors. You can see we have 10 employees there. That is another negotiations committee, meets with them and negotiates them individually with their leadership. They have a 2.8% increase scheduled for next year. And you can see the dollar amounts associated with each of those groups to the right side. I tried to align these obviously from highest to lowest, but you can see that salaries and benefits make up the vast majority of our budget. they made close to 85% of our budget. So this is something that you should really close attention to. Down further below that, you'll see health benefits, which we can talk about health benefits publicly. So health benefits, we have budgeted a significant amount of money there. That historically has gone up, I want to say over 60% in the past 11 years. So you'll see a chart on March 15th about the rise in health insurance costs. What is happening now to our district is there's a new state law called Chapter 44, which basically forces every single staff member into a new health plan designed by the state. And that has not been cost effective for our district because our negotiations board committee has negotiated well on health benefits in the past. So that law was detrimental to the district. We're expecting to lose several $100,000 every year for the next several years because of that law. Then you have other benefits in there which are mandatory. You have FICA, which every single employer in the state has to pay. That's your Medicare, Social Security. You also have pensions. So that's 7.5% if you're in TKF. Pensions for PERS members, which are the secretaries and other people, are 15.11% that the district has to pay on their salaries. You also have workers' comp in there, which is another insurance portion, dental, tuition, unemployment, a lot of other things that are related to employees. We also have a budget for substitutes and leaves of absence. So anytime you look at substitutes, just remember it's also leave of absence. So if someone goes on maternity leave, they are paid to a certain extent. Other leaves of absence are paid to a certain extent. So we're actually double paying. Hence why you have that include the substitutes. Then you have stipends that we have to pay for athletics, clubs. One of the nice things about our district is that we do not charge for athletics or clubs. There's a lot of districts that do pay to play, that charge for that. It is free to the parents of regular, which is fantastic. And we also have morning and after care. So at RMS, you have morning care, which is free. And they also have after school homework room. That is also free. And there's also a sports homework room. So all of that is free. Then we talked about extended school year. That's a mandated program. So you'll see salaries related to that, overtime. We talked about COVID intervention services. So Marcy talked about the late bus relating to that. That's our accelerated learning, our homework room, help that's being funded through federal grants. Mental health, Mr. Tumalo talked about that about a week and a half ago. All the programs we're doing for that, that's funded through the federal government. And then there's a potential staff modification last item that we covered by an executive session. Any questions on the public items, which are health benefits, other benefits, substitutes, stipends, or overtime? You can also just wait your questions until executive session if you don't know if it's confidential.
Question on the stipends. What is Black Seal?
Black Seal is a requirement for people to occupy a building right now. So there has to be a custodian in here with a Black Seal license to operate the boiler, so that way it doesn't blow up.
Thank you. That's good to know.
So that is my presentation. So back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
So this is not the end of the road for budget preparations for the board. So next, on March 15th, Jason and I will take everything that you see line by line, and and we'll put it into an overview for a tentative budget vote and a presentation on that vote. So we'll present during superintendent's report on March 15th what the total budget looks like in its entirety, how much the tax levy will be raised, the tax impact, and the impact on your average assessed home here in Bennington. And then we'll present to you a tentative budget for your approval on March 15th. What big number that has not yet come out is the governor has not yet done his budget address. Therefore, we don't have our state aid numbers. His budget address has been postponed by 2 weeks until March 8th. We anticipate by March 10th having our state aid numbers, which gives Jason and I a couple of days to finalize the presentation, adjust the budget if needed for the March 15th board meeting. Depending on how state aid numbers go, and we're being optimistic right now, we may need to have another board meeting at some point if we really have to make some significant adjustments. But Jason's budgeted conservatively. As long as we get state aid that looks relatively similar to this year, we should be in good shape. April 5th would be the board meeting after that. If there's any feedback we get from the county office, we'll update you on April 5th. The final budget vote is April 25th, that board meeting. So the next 3 board meetings will have some information related to budget preparations for next year. So if you still have questions or there are still some things that are looming and you're wondering how this all fits together, March 15th really is the date where it comes together for you. And then beyond that, it's kind of adjusting depending on state aid numbers, depending on some feedback from the county office. The final budget is not due to you for a vote until the end of April. Right. Any other questions on the budget? I'm going to grab the clicker for my presentation. Jason, you may be talking more than I have during this board meeting, so we'll wait a second. Which would be moved for us. I was hoping to have more information today in regard to some COVID updates for everyone. Specifically in regard to the guidance that we're anticipating from the state in regard to the changes in the masks, with the governor's announcement that masks will be optional starting on March 7th. We don't have that. I got an email today that the guidance document and all the announcements from the Department of Health will be out tomorrow. We'll see. So we'll see if we get more guidance and more updates tomorrow. But until then, let me just get a couple of brief updates. So we'll talk about some stats, our current case rates, attendance, any updates from the Department of Health. We have weekly briefings with the Department of Health, all the superintendents now, where they share some pertinent information about what's going on in the county. Changes made to the mask mandate, and then test to stay. I'll tell you what I know about the changes to the mask mandate. Test to stay, we've got some new information there. So again, we want as much in-person full-time instruction as possible. So our goal this year really has been to preserve as much full-time in-person instruction. By and large, I think we've been successful. We haven't kept folks down for any staffing issues, bus driver issues, or COVID-related issues. So I think we've had some success there. So attendance is looking pretty good. So you see on the 15th of last week, we see when it comes to virtual students and absent students, virtual students district-wide, we hit 11. That was the 15th. On the 17th, we had 6. Today, I have not time to run the report one more time. We have 1 student out of district right now learning virtually, right? So our rate of students that are quarantined has decreased significantly. Compare this to our our January meeting where we were looking at one point 200 students in a given day who were learning virtually. Again, these are signs that things are pointed in the right direction in terms of COVID. Another sign or signal that we're looking at is our positive cases dashboard. February is the chart on the left-hand side, where we see we've got 1 staff member, 15 students that have been reported to us. There were some additional today that I've added, so I think it's about 18 or 19 today with some of the updates. That's in February alone. And we see district-wide total is about 56 staff members and 350 students. So again, February is looking a lot like November right now. So kind of like pre-December, pre-holiday season numbers we're starting to post as far as positive numbers. But the good thing is we still have positive cases, but if you go back to the amount of students that we have learning virtually, it's showing some improvement. So we see some good signs here. So we know masks in schools is something that parents, the board, administrators, teachers, we're all anticipating this guidance and what this is actually going to look like. We don't have it yet, but what I can share are a couple of things. We know masks, the governor announced the masks will be optional on March 7th. The Department of Health is expected to update their K-12. There's a K-12 school guideline document that we use to inform our practice. That's due to be updated prior to March 7th. That's the guidance document that we expect tomorrow. What exactly that's going to look like, how exactly we implement an optional mask policy. What does it look like for close contact, contact tracing? What might it look like for possible testing and test to stay? That's the information that we're looking for so that we can package everything together and make a plan. The leadership team is meeting on Thursday, so that the timing is really great. If we get the document tomorrow, I can go through it and we can talk with the leadership team. And then we have a lot of committees next week as a board where we can talk about the guidance. But I want to make it clear that there may be instances where masks may be required at certain points. And this is what came from the Department of Health when we met with them last week. Masks will be optional, yes, but the mask optional policy will likely be tied to some sort of transmission rate or case rate, either locally with our Cali region or within the schools. So as long as things progress in the positive direction and we're in yellow, we're actually headed toward green, although I don't know, it might be another couple of weeks for that. I think masks are likely that we'll get guidance that says masks will come off, but they may come with some kind of caveat that if we return back to orange or if we return back to red in the Cali report, that maybe masks will have to go back on in the schools. I don't know, right? So this is why this guidance document is critically important for us to see. Or if it's not tied to necessarily Cali score and transmission rates, that there might be a signal to the Department of Health that maybe there's something happening here at Hollenbrook School, because we see a lot of cases from one class or one grade level, and maybe there would just be some collaboration on what the mitigation response should be from the school districts with the Department of Health, and whether or not masks is part of that. That could be something that's included in the guidance. Are masks required at all at any part during the school day? The answer is yes. We know that they will be required on school buses because this is federal regulation that transportation, public transportation does have a mask requirement. This includes planes, New Jersey Transit, buses, things like that. They're including school buses here as well. Test to stay. So there's some really good guidance that looked like it came, but it kind of works contradictory with the masking guidance that we're expecting. So this is some of the confusion that school officials are trying to grapple with. So test to stay combines contact tracing and serial testing to allow any asymptomatic students who are in close contact within schools to remain in schools and not have to quarantine. So they can continue their in-person learning. So the nice part and the positive part about this, going back to our guiding principle, is this is a great strategy to help us keep kids in schools for in-person learning. That one student that we know of today, I think it's only one today, that might be learning virtually for one reason or other could fall into the criteria here and maybe could be learning in person. So this is good. The even better news, right, about test to stay. So we've been investigating companies that would help us with this. But the even better news was the fact that, I'll get to that in a moment, but the even better news is that while the Department of Health recommends that company to come in to do it with the schools, that there is an option for at-home testing, part of the test to stay protocol. And that was updated just a couple of weeks ago. And the superintendents of the Department of Health talked about it last week, and we kind of stumbled across this guidance that gives us some flexibility, which is really nice. The testing must be rapid antigen testing. Students have to be tested immediately after being notified that they're within school close contact. They have to continue testing every other day for 5 days, or test again after the 5th day. And any student who tests positive would notify the school immediately. That's the protocol. But who would qualify? This is where it gets a little fuzzy and a little confusing. A child who's a close contact in school, they don't have any signs or symptoms of COVID-19. So we know that a lot of our students go home and they're asymptomatic. They meet the criteria of close contact in school, but this is where it's muddy. They have to be observed being fully masked at the time of exposure. So for the next couple of weeks, this works because masks are required in school. As long as it's a place where masks is required, like a classroom and not lunch, we could use our test to stay protocol. And parents could even take children for testing on their own and just report a rapid antigen test to the school nurse. The problem is after the 7th, if we were going to recommend to the board that masks become optional, then we don't have that measure. So I feel like this kind of needs to be updated with the mask guidelines from the Department of Health all at once, because this was published a couple of weeks ago. The other requirement is that students who do return to school under the test to stay protocol, that they would have to be masked for those days that they were in school, except while eating and drinking. And I believe it's for the full 10 days, not just 5 days. And then they have to submit to the testing. So some of this was even noted after I made the presentation, so I've updated this slide since we posted it on Friday. So the bottom line is the devil's in the details with testing today and with the masks, right? So this has to work together, and there needs to be consistent guidance for school officials to implement this in the safest way possible. So it's important for us to really review the guidance. Hopefully that will be published tomorrow, and we also have a Q&A with the Department of Health on Friday before we put out any public statements about what we'll do with masking, in case there's more questions or there's some details that are left out of the test and stay protocol and the optional masking before and after the 7th. If you are looking for testing options, the Department of Health has created a website, and I know that they just opened up a new testing site, I believe, on Rayville Avenue in Flemington, right near the Flemington Circle. Remember, families and parents use that COVID reporting form. Our nurses thank you that's going very, very well. So we appreciate that, and I'll take any questions that the board might have based off of what I presented.
Good question. So
Sure.
if,
And I'll try to answer, by the way, like things are still very tentative, so.
so my question is just if you do get the guidance tomorrow.
Yeah.
You meet with the department, you meet the leadership team on Thursday, the Department of Health on Friday.
Yes.
So communication wouldn't go out to the public or to our community until probably the beginning of next week.
Probably.
Okay.
And we have some committee meetings as a board too. If there's anything that's could be difficult to implement in the guidance document, that's something that we may want to discuss in our committees before public announcement goes out, potentially. But it could be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Did the governor when the governor made the announcement, I just don't remember, did he tie it to zones remaining a certain color? Didn't he just, it's
No.
coming off, right?
The timeline really seems like he announced it and then charged the Department of Health and the Department of Education to collaboratively come up with protocols for how it would be implemented after the announcement. So it's going to be up to the DOE and the DOE whether or not this is tied to those CALI scores, an in-school transmission rate, the potential of the Department of Health contact tracing a outbreak potentially in a school or a classroom. That's what I'm just guessing that there's going to be something that's going to come from the Department of Health and the Department of Education who's working on that guidance document that's going to talk about what do you do if or when. Yeah. Any other questions?
Dr. Hurt?
Yes.
With the test to stay as it stands today with the proposal, knowing there might be forthcoming details.
Yeah.
Is the testing just the first 5 days or is that extended to?
That's how I read the guidance, was it only for 5 days. It was either every testing was on day that you were notified that your child is a close contact in school and every other day until day 5, or day 1 or 0 and day 5.
So you're talking about 2 or potentially 3
Yeah.
tests.
Mm-hmm. That flexibility was added. It looks like that flexibility was actually added to that document. Initially, when we first got it, it was every other day. And then it turned into every other day or day 0, day 5. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Our nurses took a look at that as well, the document. I got some feedback today on it as well. We haven't seen a ton of students who have been out on quarantine for any significant period of time. I don't even know if it would be, I don't know if it would be something that parents would be interested in. I mean, I could have the nurses handle it on a case-by-case basis and say, look, this is an opportunity for you. But then once the mask guidance changes things, so we'll adjust. Anything else? I just want to let the board know, that this is not on my report, but I've been talking with the high school and Mrs. Moffett about graduation for 8th grade. Using the football field like we did last year, which was a really nice venue for graduation. We had a beautiful day last year too. I mean, we could not have asked for better weather. We'd like to do it outside again, but our graduations are overlapping by, like a period of 20, actually they could be the same day if we wanted them to, but there's an overlap period. So we're looking at potentially scheduling graduation on June 20th, which is our second to last day of school. And the high school's graduation is on the 21st. I just want to let you know for two reasons. One, if you want to come, that's what we're looking at. It's usually the 20th in the afternoon or evening, like 4 o'clock. Your board members are invited. And two, if we have to move graduation to the 20th, we may have to turn that into an early dismissal day because we dismiss our students, teachers from the middle school to go over to set up for graduation and get ready and get in line and everything like that. So more details forthcoming, but I just want to let you know. That's what we're looking at. And that's it. That's everything, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we are now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda, or questions on the superintendent's report. Yes?
Yeah, we could do that. That's fine.
Good evening, Justina Ryan. So first I'll start by saying I'm thankful that our students are getting a little bit of their freedom back by taking the masks off. That's huge. The other thing I want to mention is I heard you say the word guidelines probably 8 times in that presentation. And so that's one thing that I want the board to focus on and keep that in your mind. Those are guidelines that are coming through. They are not mandates. You as the board have decisions to make. You do not have to follow those guidelines. And the other thing, and you also mentioned that, Dr. Hart, about it being contradictory with the masks. So if now a student will be contact traced, let me back up. Masks come off March 7th, right? Say it's my daughter. She doesn't wear a mask for 4 weeks. She's contact traced. Now she goes to school. She's negative. She has to put a mask on. That's like putting a scarlet letter on her. Do you realize what that will do emotionally to these children? Now you're going to have children avoiding that child because they potentially have COVID. I think you really need to look at a bigger picture here. Our children have suffered socially, emotionally, big time in 2 years. It has to come to the point where it has to end. The other thing I have questions on, because I do actually have the Department of Health that came out February 2nd regarding testing. And that it doesn't mention anything about how you provide a negative test result. It looks as if you only have to provide a positive test result. That you only have to report, I should say, a positive test report. Is that correct?
Let me look at it again.
Okay. Because it makes no mention of that in there. Let me just see what my other questions were.
If you could state your questions, then Dr. Hart can answer.
I'll go through
at the
everything
end.
now. I will.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm just kind of going through mine as well here. The masking was a big thing for me with the contact tracing. The other thing is, I'm not sure about the other schools, but White House School, I know the kids sit on these dots in the cafeteria where they still sit 6 feet apart. Will that change come March 7th? I think that's all my questions. Oh, one more question. You mentioned the leadership team. Is that for COVID?
No, that's the whole leadership team, the principals and supervisors in the district, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But we don't address the answers to the questions?
But I'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
Everyone gets their chance to speak
Yeah.
first.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you. Okay, come on up.
Hi, I just have a question. My name is Felicia Howard. I know did they come out with guidance as far as, or are they going to come out with guidance as far as vaccinated, if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated? for the contact tracing with masks off? Is that something still being worked on?
He'll try to answer all the questions at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, I just, because I didn't see it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other?
Hi, I'm Laura Talty. Circling back to some of what Justina was talking about with guidance and guidelines, I just kind of want to know what type of information you're looking for from the Department of Health as far as guidance and guidelines. What do you want them to tell you? What's going to make you feel comfortable with giving these kids the chance to experience school the way they should be with no masks? You know, I know people have said before in past meetings that, you know, they need to see each other's face, they need to see each other smile, they need to learn facial recognition for future, you know, just future awareness of how to read people in a certain way. You know, mental health goes a long way with being able to see somebody's face and not, you know, being behind a screen and what they've lost by doing that. So that I think is really huge. You know, since the March 7th date came out, you know, a bunch of districts have already declared right away that they're doing, that masks should be optional. And that is what it should be. What I feel like it should be optional for the parents to decide whether or not they want to send their kids to school with a mask. I mean, certainly if parents feel comfortable sending their child to school with a mask, go ahead. But the parents that don't agree with it need to have the option to have their kids go and not have it on. I mean, I can't even tell you how I'm touching my face constantly holding this mask. That's what these kids are probably constantly doing, is touching their face constantly holding the mask. So, you know, that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak?
Trying to think.
No pressure.
You don't have to.
No pressure. My name is Krista Patuta. I just have a quick question. I know that when the initial quarantine guidelines were sent out, there was a question of whether students who had had the virus within 90 days would need to get tested. I know that there is information out there that they could show up positive for some time after, and I didn't know if that would be put into consideration when making these new rules or guidelines for the school.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a comment online?
Amy Grillo has raised a hand.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna let Amy go first.
Amy?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name's Amy Grillo. I'm sorry if this was covered, but I don't believe it was. I'm wondering, once the masks are off, is there still going to need to be social distancing as well? So can the kids sit close together with their friends at lunchtime? Can they, in some classrooms, the younger rooms, can they go back to tables instead of desks 3 or 6 feet apart? I don't know if anything's been said on that, so that's what I'm asking about.
Okay, thank you. Was there another hand that went up?
I thought so, but I
I
don't
don't see it
know who it was. It went off my screen. Do you see it somewhere?
No,
I'm sorry. It was like there, and then it was gone.
I just changed my mind. Do you want to read the?
You want me to read that, or you want to wait?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay, so we have a comment from Anne Marie Romano saying several New Jersey districts already announced they have stopped contact tracing and quarantining. Since it's only a recommendation, not a mandate, why are we still doing this? Also, many parents do not want testing done in our schools. It is time to stop all masking, contact tracing, quarantining, and testing.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the board or from the public? Okay, There will be another public comment section next. That closes the public comment section. Did you,
I can do the best I can. Yeah.
okay,
Mrs. Ryan, I'm looking at the guidelines right now about reporting testing, and I have to read it closer, and I thought I saw a section about having, if you do a home test, having to report the negative test to the school nurse. But let me see if I can find it, and I'm on page 3, where it talks about the test to stay protocol. And it's highlighted, alternatively, home-based tests, including self-tests, can be used for this purpose. In parentheses, see reporting test results below. And if I go down to reporting test results, they're required to report all COVID-19 laboratory test results, both positive and negative, is where it brings me to. So that tells me, unless there's something else in here, that if you're a test to stay child, you just have to you have to let us know if it's positive or negative.
That also says it's for healthcare providers and laboratories, so I don't know how that would pertain to a parent doing an at-home test. I mean, take the time to read through it, I have it right here as well, and I have.
Yeah,
Also.
and I see the highlighted section right below, it just says positive test results, so I gotcha, I know where it's coming from. It doesn't seem like anything negative really needs to be. I get where you're seeing that, because it's highlighted, if self-tests are used for TTS, schools should report positive test results either through the COVID-19 home-based test or report them to their LHD, but that's only for the local health department, and that's where the confusion lies. That the health department wants to know if there's an at-home positive test, but is it the school that has to know if there's a test either way?
Exactly.
I get what you mean, yep.
And once again, guidelines, that's what we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'll get to that too, I guess. These are guidelines, and that is correct. These are guidelines that come from state agencies like the Department of Education and the Department of Health. I believe we have an obligation to provide a certain standard of care to our students, to protect our staff, to look out for the best interest of everyone. I don't know if it's in the best interest of not only the students, but the staff and everyone that our district serves for me to guide the board or provide recommendations to disregard certain guidelines. That's how I feel about it. I think that that's something that we have to wrestle with as a board, something that I really need to think about and we need to talk about ethically and morally as a superintendent, as district leaders, but there could be a moral, ethical, financial, legal cost to not following a guideline from an agency like the Department of Health or Department of Education. And I don't know if I have a better answer than that. I know their guidelines. I think it's in the best interest of our students and our staff and everyone that's in the building or in our schools to follow the guidelines with as much fidelity as possible and use the wiggle room where we have it, where the Department of Health gives us that wiggle room. I know that districts that have chosen not to follow the guidelines have been reported to the state level. I don't know what sanctions or consequences exist, but I do know that the Department of Health and the health officer has reporting and consequential authority. What that is, I don't know. I haven't heard specifically, but I do know that reports have been made. So, I would recommend to this board, I know our board attorney would recommend to this board that guidelines are there to be followed. And we might just have to disagree on that with members of the public or members of our staff or members of our community, but that's a difficult thing for me to try to get behind, is picking and choosing certain guidelines that we follow or those that we disregard. In regard to 6 feet apart, a lot of these questions I simply don't know. Part of the reason why we're waiting for the guidance on masks is currently as it stands, if a mask is not worn, the contact tracing distance is 6 feet. In my personal purview, I think that has to change when masks become optional in schools, because I think that will mean more contact tracing and more quarantining of more students out of school. When I think we met back in 2 weeks ago, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, it feels like a long time ago. I think we talked about how the superintendents, the Garden State Coalition, the School Boards Association, the Superintendents Association, has had a seat at the table as the Department of Health and the Department of Education have been writing these guidelines, and we have questions too, exactly like some of your questions as well. And these are things that need to be answered because school officials are really concerned. We're seeing this in practice as it lays out in school. And I think we need the Department of Health to make sure that they're on the same page with us. And we have had a seat at the table to provide the feedback, to give the feedback to the officials who are making the guidelines. Maybe for asymptomatic cases, contact tracing may simply be monitor your symptoms. I don't know. The contact tracing guidelines could change completely. I don't know if the distance moves to 6 feet. I would hope not, because we don't have 6 feet anymore like we did last year in the fall. Let me see, Mrs. Felicia Ryan, is that also a Ryan? Are you Mrs. Ryan as well?
No, I have a son, Ryan, but no. I'm
That's
Howard.
right, I must have written down.
That's it.
All right,
Right,
there you go.
Howard.
I'm sorry about that. My
Oh,
apologies. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated. We don't have any specific guidance, so you may know that currently students who are vaccinated are considered close contacts, do not need to quarantine. Unvaccinated students do need to quarantine. I don't know if that will change. Similarly, I think Mrs. Pachuta, you asked about children who have had COVID in the past 90 days. Similarly, students or staff, for that matter, who have had COVID in the past 90 days also do not need to quarantine. So right now, there is no quarantine for vaccinated students, and vaccinated for students that are 12 or older consists of the series of vaccines plus a booster. For younger children, it's just the first series of vaccines. Positive tests within the past 90 days. We're willing to accept, obviously, a laboratory test. A member of the household who tested positive, but if the child had symptoms, but the member of the household also tested positive with the laboratory test, that other child might have been presumptive positive. We consider him or her positive as well because they're part of the same household. And I do believe at-home tests we are also taking, as long as we just get a picture of the at-home test as verification of positive tests. So those students do not need to quarantine. Will that change with the upcoming guidance document? I don't know. What's in store for us as far as contact tracing with vaccinated versus unvaccinated students. And I don't know if your question was relating also to our vaccine protocols. There's nothing from the state that I've seen or gotten any hints to that will require vaccines for children to attend schools. I mentioned in a previous Board of Education meeting that even the typical series of vaccines for infants and toddlers that's expected in early childhood, even those have certain medical and religious exemptions. Because of those current statutory exemptions that exist for vaccines, I don't believe that the state has legislative authority to mandate vaccines because there are already exemptions that exist. But I don't know that.
It's not embarrassing, just in answer to your vaccine thing. Only because I have, my son gets the flu almost yearly this year. And every year we get his flu vaccine.
Okay.
And he's been, most of our friends, his teachers, everybody knows, he's been through all sorts of medical issues. And so we have done our best and followed the vaccines. We're not anti-vaxxers. And, we've also had where doctors guided him in a sense. And we were on, unfortunately, the bad side of the guidance. And we have gotten his flu vaccine. He gets the flu. He's gotten it severely. He's been hospitalized with pneumonia. And I don't discriminate against those who don't get their flu vaccine, and it's not required, I think, over a certain age. I know the flu and COVID are very different, but I have a child who gets flu very severely. So I just ask you, because I know there's a lot of children, asthmatics, that can be affected by the flu, and we don't mandate that people get their vaccine for that. So if that ever came on the table, I really would ask you not to discriminate against those who are not ready to get the COVID vaccine for their child. I would like more time and studies on the vaccine. I'm not anti-vaxxer by any means, but I also have a child who I vaccinated for the flu. It doesn't necessarily work for him, so I'm not ready to go for an emergency.
Understood.
So in the future, I hope you do think about that if they change the mandate to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate it. Mrs. Talty, you asked some of the things that we're looking for. As you can see, you have questions. related to what this looks like, even the 6-foot distances in school. So you can imagine the level of questions that we have as school officials, as well as our school nurses. So I'm looking for things like, will we be doing contact tracing? Will that contact tracing be within 6 feet, 3 feet, or none at all? Is there a trigger to have masks go on, right? If at some point, can we be proactive about something? Is there going to be a Cali score? Is there going to be a local health department recommendation for masks go on? Or will there be a potential school closure because of something like this when the mask's off? These are things that I believe may be addressed, and I don't know if they will be addressed in the guidance. But I think when it comes to doing a couple of things, implementing the guidance, if the masks do go optional, to do it in a way that allows choice for certain folks that want to send their children to school with a mask or without a mask, but for all of you to be fully informed on what your decision is, because it sounds like if this decision gets to parents, that everyone's going to want to know everything that's in that guidance document so that you can make an informed decision. That's what I'm waiting for, so I can communicate thoroughly so everyone knows what's out there. I mean, schools made the announcement about masks being optional, and then there was a question about the school bus, and all of a sudden that had to be corrected, right? So that's kind of why we're waiting for the information to have all at once. I think that's everything. Mrs. Grillo, we'll talk about social distancing when we see the guidance documents, in the cafeterias and such. But I think that's everything, right?
There will be another public comment section, and it'll only be about 10 minutes.
And feel free to email me or something like that if you have another question or follow-up.
I think something COVID related with our traffic road forward or whatever we were calling it this year. What do we have to renew that plan after? Is that something still up in the air also?
It's still up in the air.
Okay.
So that's different than the safe return plan. There was a safe return plan that we adopted back in June. You remember we were in Hollandbrook, and we had to adopt that, and that gets renewed every 6 months. So we have to update that every 6 months, and that's the safe return plan. That's the document that's tied to the ESSER funds, that we had to actually take that document and upload it in order to get access to our ESSER funds. That's the only one that I know of that's required to be updated, but there could be something else that the district may have to put into place as far as policy or planning in order to move to a masks optional.
When does that expire? Like, so would we potentially have to continue on?
The safe return plan?
Yeah.
I think it's there until September 2024. Okay. Because we have our funding through September 2024, but it could change.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on through the agenda, correspondence. We had emails regarding masks and quarantine, district links, masks, and close contact. Board action, there were no administrative reports for approval. Approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt 2.01?
I move that.
Second, Camille. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Eric?
Yeah, I just have a quick change I need. I emailed it to Jason, but I initially abstained on 101 and 102. Then I amended my vote to yes. I'd just like the minutes to reflect that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Podgorski. Mr. Wallace. Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Swirling.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciello.
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton.
Yes. Finance and facilities, there's no committee report, right?
No.
Can we get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.10?
So move that.
Second, Camille. Any questions or comments on the agenda items?
I just had a question for the curriculum office renovation that's part of this. And this is a question, I guess, for Jason. Is there any effort to be made as part of this to do it in a way that's green, use materials that are, support our green initiatives in the district, or, energy efficient, wherever that can be. I understand the renovations are not that dramatic, so, but, furniture that has, no VOC paint and furniture that maybe is cost effective but might still support our green initiatives. I just like to make a request for that if I can.
Noted, and I will, normally we send a list of all our projects to the sustainability coordinator for her to review for input on potential green aspects. We also have the policies, but I will look into very specific things to see if we can update LED lighting, non-VOC paint, things like that.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Veteran,
Yes.
Ms. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Peach,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Dr. Sosial,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
passes.
Ed Tech, there's no committee report. Motion to adopt 4.01 to 4.04.
So move that.
Second, Randy.
Any questions or comments?
I do have, and I'm sorry, we didn't get to spend time with this in the Ed Tech committee meeting, but I had some questions about the ELL 3-year plan.
Sure.
So what is the district's kind of plan for an increase in students that will be English language learners? The plan covers till 2024, right? So we're already kind of at that 20 students in the one language. So I don't know if you want to speak to that now. Or
Yeah. On the plan, I'm gonna try to find it real quick, but there was a place in program or curriculum that talked about general education teachers and general ed instruction. So first I'll start and pull back and say that Mrs. Beagle is using this plan to make a list of recommendations for program improvement for now into the future over the next 3 years for ELL or ESL programming. One of those we've already taken, which was addition of another half-time staff member so that we don't have one staff member traveling to all 4 buildings. We also created a magnet school with having all of the Three Bridges ELL students actually attend at White House to keep them under one roof so that we can have program efficiencies. But the area that I believe we noted here in the plan where we need some greater attention falls under some of the strategies that our general ed teachers use. You saw in there this sheltered instruction model or SIOP model, which we answered no to and answered no to some of the training and some of the data that's used by the general education teachers. I know that it's part of our planning over the next couple of years to investigate and do some SIOP training for general ed teachers. Provide them more of use our ELL staff to be more consultative with the general ed teachers to use that data to drive some instruction in the general ed class. And then there was one other thing that I think scheduling was something else too, where we kind of go through it. Scheduling is difficult, but our ELL population's been so small they haven't driven the schedule, whereas special education population, because the need of their services also can drive scheduling. We're looking at trying to reschedule ELL students to make sure that we reprioritize them. Just some highlights, but we'll keep you updated in Ed Tech over the next couple of months and into the future.
Yeah, and then just as follow up to that, the waiver that we apply for.
Yeah.
What is the term limit of that? Is that an annual?
It's annual.
Okay.
Yeah, bilingual waiver, although the Department of Ed, from what I recall, didn't have it available last year when we were going through QSAC, because that was a QSAC item that wasn't available last year, and I don't know if it's available yet this year, but that's something we go through on an annual basis.
Is there a cap of the number of students so like we're already kind of just over the 20 mark in terms of students in one language?
Yeah.
Is there a cap that they no longer, like you can no longer apply for the waiver if you're at this number?
I think our trigger would actually be if we applied to the waiver and they were like, no, you have too many students now, like you actually have to input the bilingual program. My only experience with that was in a former district where we applied for the waiver year after year, and then we finally got into a critical mass of number of Spanish-speaking students where it was like, you have to do something to start implementing a bilingual program. And the state worked with us in order to implement that bilingual program. What the exact number is, I don't have one, and I don't know if the state has one unless they see something that comes through that bilingual waiver.
Okay, so the potential changes to the program could happen before that 2024 timeline, so
Yes,
that was like a self-assessment sort of thing of this is where we need to go, what we need to do.
yes.
Because I can see us potentially growing in
Yeah.
that population and
Agreed.
Ms. B, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did she put something in there?
She said that the waiver is not available yet.
Thank you, Stacy.
yes, thank you.
And if there's anything else you want to add, Stacy, feel free to type it in, but I think I got it.
Are there any other questions on ed tech?
I'd like to just quickly talk about 4.02 for just a second about the grant for the bioswale project at TBS. There's a tremendous, the project is a wonderful project. It's been brought up before the whole board, but some people are new to it. There's a detention basin there behind the school, which the project is to retrofit it as a water retention basin with habitat enhancement. It's going to serve to improve water quality and also serve as a living classroom for the school, to enhance curriculum. There are still a number of outstanding potential grants. Jason's office has been critical in those applications. That's going to be discussed further in front of the Green Committee as well. But it's a wonderful project that will integrate well into the school and the curriculum at the school. So if anybody's interested, there's much more detail, but that's enough of an overview for this venue.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions, comments? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Bettman,
Yes.
Ms. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Zwilling,
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamel.
Yes. Moving on to personnel, there was a committee report that came out this afternoon and the chair is not here, so we could just read it at the next meeting. I guess. It's not in the portal yet.
It's there.
Oh, it
I
is?
think it's there, yeah.
Could somebody from the,
I just clicked on it. Unless it's the private.
It's just a few quick words.
Oh, yeah.
would you mind reading it?
I don't have it from me.
Oh,
I've seen the committee, if you want, I can read it.
I'm sorry.
She's,
Here, come here.
it's in the email.
I don't have it online.
Yeah, thank you.
It's on there?
I haven't,
Well, it was in the email. She said
no, on
that.
in the portal.
I have it on my portal.
Yeah, it's on there.
Scroll down.
Maybe I need it renewed.
I can just go through this.
Okay. Okay, so I'm
committee-
sorry, I forgot, I didn't open it yet. I got distracted on the committee. Can we get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.05?
I'll move that.
Second, Camille? Okay, if you could read the committee report now, please, sorry, thank you.
All right, a meeting was held on February 17th.
Yeah.
And first topic was staffing for current year and next year. The next topic involved enrollment projections and staffing options. Next came staffing projections and requests. The next topic was bus drivers and benefits protocol. Topic number 5 was test to stay. The 6th topic was DOH guidelines. Then personnel matters. Board goal number 2. And some agenda items, including hiring assistant VA, resignations, cafeteria aide, bus driver, additional hours. And then they set the next meeting for Wednesday, March 2nd at 8:45.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes or the action items? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Bettman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Zwilling,
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel.
Yes.
Passes.
Communication, can I get a motion to adopt 6.01?
So move that.
Second, Jennifer. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the action item? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call?
Ms. Betterman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowling,
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Ms. Hamble.
Yes. Unfinished business, just a reminder that we have our board tours coming up on March 8th and March 9th. And is there any other unfinished business?
Mrs. Campbell, can I just request for the tours, I think this is already part of it anyway, or Dr. Hart, to see the capital projects that we have on slate for this year, for next year's budget? As we're going through the schools, if you
Yeah.
just point out.
That's a good idea. We've done that before.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna take you on the roof.
That's
I was-
fine.
I was gonna make that joke, but.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Any new business from the board? Not hearing any, we are now open to the public for anything on or off the agenda.
Was that for me?
Yeah.
Hi, Krista Pachuta again. Just a quick question because it's been a little bit unclear in terms of specific symptoms that students need when they have them in school and then they're sent home. Allergy season is about to come, and I know my son and I both suffer, so I know multiple symptoms, more than 2 symptoms, requires a student to go home and possibly have a PCR test. I didn't know if there was specific information district-wide so that it's consistent and there's a clear answer, because it does seem like it is a bit unclear, and I know that if there are multiple symptoms, presented, I don't know if there will be a need for a doctor's note so that repeated testing doesn't need to happen for those students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Talty again. I second what she says, because I do also have children, specifically a son who gets allergy shots, so he's coming into his heavy season in the
Okay.
spring. So that's a very good point. I wanted to ask you, since you're have a seat at the table now with the Department of Health, and you're in this great exchange with, information going back and forth, are those sessions open to the public? That we could be involved in hearing how your discussions are going on, so that we can, parents and, people who've been coming here now for the past month and a half can express our opinions to them and, get the information, be able to discuss with them as well, because certainly, parents should have a seat at the table as well when it comes to the Department of Health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to read some comments, or wait for the end?
Is there anything
Is
new
it-
in there?
Yeah, there's a
No,
couple of
that's
new
okay.
comments. There's nobody with their hands raised online, and somebody's podium yet, so we could read them.
Okay. Can do that. Let's see, I covered that one. We have one from Constantine, I don't know, Papasavas, who says, according to the CDC, a healthcare provider can return to work within 5 days or not take off at all, depending on the work situation, regardless of cost of negative test. Then we have Laura Kelleher, who says, I've seen suggestions from Hunter and Central parents that a survey be distributed to the community. I appreciate we all have different opinions on this situation, and I'd encourage the district and board to find a way to do that. There are many people who don't feel comfortable speaking in this forum or reaching out to the administration. Thank you. And then the other comments are from Stacy Beagle.
There was a second comment from Constantine,
Oh, did I miss it? I apologize.
right above Laura.
Oh, okay, yes. I'm sorry, I missed that one. It says again, the vaccine does not stop or slow the spread, nor does it ever. Why are the vaccinated treated different? Because of cost.
Are there any other comments? Questions? All right, not hearing any, then the public comment section is now closed. Dr. Hart, if you'd like to answer any of the
Sure.
questions or get back to them.
No, I know that in regard to allergy season coming up, I know that when it comes to the symptoms that are displayed, there's like the best I can describe it is a 2-column chart. It's sort of like you have one symptom in this column, you're considered to have a symptom like COVID or 2 symptoms from this column. I know the nurses have that. Stacy Beagle, I know you're listening. If there is inconsistency with the nurses implementing that 2-column chart, let's talk about that to make sure that we're on the same page as we enter allergy season. But that's the best answer I can give without having the chart in front of me. But it's 1 symptom from this column or 2 symptoms from that column. And I think the 1 symptom column are things like fever, which you're out of school anyway, right? When you have a fever, regardless of whether or not it's COVID. Mrs. Talty, there were a couple of things. So the feedback, all of the feedback that I provided as a superintendent of schools has been provided through either directly to one of the governor's deputy chiefs of staff, through the Garden State Coalition, or through the New Jersey School Superintendents Association, to our governance committee that has a connection with the governor's office. All of that's been written communication from not only me, but from all superintendents that are in that association. The sessions that we've had in providing feedback and talking with the Department of Health has been between the Department of Health and Emergency Management and school superintendents. To my knowledge, they're not open to the public. If you do have feedback, there was a parent that I can forward you an email. There was a parent I provided contact information of our county officials at the health department and the DOE. I can send that to you so you know where to send your feedback. If this guidance is coming tomorrow, it might be a little too late, but I don't know if it will be, but I can certainly forward you, I have your email, I'll forward you the information I sent to that other parent, and you can certainly write to the health department here and the Department of Ed here, which are both Hunterdon County seats that they have. And I think that's everything.
Can I just address, am I allowed to address Ms. Tulty? I just wanted to tell you that you can call the Department of Health. I've called them. They have a COVID-specific selection you can make, and you can talk to someone.
Yeah, I have contact there, so okay. Look at that. Thank you. Yeah, if you could send me the email anyway, I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
All right, can I get a motion to move into executive session to discuss personnel benefits budget and HID for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action shall not be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist.
So moved, Jeff.
Second, Randy.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Oh, wait, roll call.
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes?
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Zeroni.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciello.
Yes.
Ms. Sample.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.